Right. So look, it's delightful to be here with everybody, and I'm going to spend 10 minutes just racing you through a few things about the longitudinal study. And as Sally said, it's about whetting your appetite and hoping you'll come back for more. So I'm just going to start by acknowledging that the study is funded by the Australian Government Department of Health, and they started doing that in 1995. And we've been grateful to be successfully refunded again and again and again through good management and hard work. So there you go. And our aims are to provide an accurate picture of health and well-being of women in Australia and to determine factors that affect women's health throughout their lives. And the study is conducted jointly by the University of Queensland and the University of Newcastle, and we work as one study, two sites. The study is considered to be a national resource. It's funded by the government. It's something that the government provides to help improve our knowledge of health in our country, particularly women's health. And the data are freely available to approved researchers. So far, and the plus is probably really important because more and more people use the study every day, but 13,000 plus researchers, and we've got about over 500 people currently using the data. Lots of people have done PhDs, masters or honours on the project, and we produce a lot of research and reports and papers. And we're also, like the 45 and up study, able to do sub-studies where we can identify subsamples of people and undertake more specific research with those people, providing that additional data collection is funded. So the study originally involved 3 cohorts of women who were recruited through Medicare in 1996. The women were from all over Australia, with sampling in rural and remote areas in twice the proportion to their representation in the population. And that's so that we could have sufficient people from those areas to say something specifically about them, rather than it being a study that mainly represented the majority of people who live around the coast. And then in 2012-13, we recognised that the women we were calling the young women were moving into their late 30s and starting to move into their 40s. And so we were fortunate enough that the government decided to fund an additional cohort who were born in 1989 to 95. So we had a new cohort of young women, and we were able to understand something about the current generation of younger women, I think, which is incredibly important to have that there. And then this year, we've been funded to refresh the cohorts by increasing representation from women from Asia, because we started the study in 1995, 1996, and the Australian population demographic has changed quite considerably since then. So we're trying to refresh our cohorts to be more representative there. And next month, the first of our oldest women will turn 100. So they get a happy birthday card, and let's see if they're more excited to get a happy birthday card from the Queen or a happy birthday card from us. I'm hoping it's us. Now, just going to show you a little bit of data, because I hate giving talks without data. It's sort of against my being, but also because I think this really represents why different cohorts, and why knowing what you know about one cohort is not really going to tell you what's happening to the next one and the next one. So this is just the prevalence of obesity. And if you even just look at the very first dot on those graphs, and pretending you were doing a cross-sectional study back in 19 whatever, you'd say, well, wow, you know, the younger women aren't going to have much of a problem with obesity, because look at that 1973-78 cohort, back when we first surveyed them in 1996, a skinny little bunch. But as time goes by, you can see how steep that increase in obesity and weight in general has been in that cohort. And that's before they even reach middle-age spread, which I've managed to reach now. Or then if you look at the 1989-95 cohort, you can see that they're heavier again. So here we see the sort of cohort projection of growth in overweight and obesity, and then that translates into increased prevalence of chronic disease, because they're heavier, earlier, and for longer throughout their lifespan. So really, we've got very different epidemiological patterns in these different cohorts. We've also seen some very big differences in terms of mental health. Now, physical health is really interesting, because we're sort of seeing this what you'd expect from an age-associated decline in physical functional capacity. But what we aren't seeing is those dots joining up for the 1946-51 cohort to the 1921-26 cohort. So that's very exciting in terms of compression of morbidity, and let's watch this space and hope that plays out. But if what we're seeing for mental health is something that's quite different and really of great concern, is that very, very high level of psychological distress and poor mental health in that 1989-95 cohort. Really a great concern for what's happening with that generation of women. And then, as I said, it plays out in terms of chronic diseases. So this is the prevalence of diabetes, and you can see that diabetes is greater the younger the cohort is. It increases this with age, but it also increases with the generation. And so partly that might be due to better diagnosis, better survival, but I think it's also partly due to some of those weight and other lifestyle factors which might be playing out in the cohorts. The other thing I want to point out on this slide is that the dotted lines on here are generated from putting together a whole lot of different sources of linked data to use that as a way of identifying chronic disease. So we're actually preparing a data set which will be derived from those different linked data, which will tell us about chronic disease, and that complements the self-reported data that we have from the women. So on to the data. So in the beginning, we began with paper surveys, and we were surveying the women every 3 years on a rolling basis. So a different cohort every year, just so we could manage the workload. In 2012, we started surveying the older women every 6 months because we found we're probably missing some of the most important changes towards the end of their lives. So they've been doing those surveys every 6 months, and many of those who are still alive are still doing those surveys, which is just wonderful. But we also moved to online surveys. And so our 1989-95 cohort are completely online. And because a lot of women were online, that gave us a tremendous opportunity at the end of last year, during last year, when COVID came up, to say, we can really rapidly respond to this by putting out online surveys to those people who complete the surveys online, or anyone who had an email address actually, and send out that to them and say, complete these surveys online. And we sent them a survey every 2 weeks and basically took their pulse during COVID to see how they were going. So we've produced 14 reports from that, but we're also now putting the data together to get a full picture of what's happened to women during COVID, and seeing some very stark differences between the different cohorts. So if you want access to the survey data, there's a core data set, which you can go through to the ADA Dataverse and register to download that data set. So it's subject to an administrative review, and you'll generally get the data within 1 week. So that's to try and advance the accessibility of the data and the amount to which it's used. Then there's other data which you can't get through the Dataverse. So I'll just spin to them now quickly. So one's about food and diet data, and I think we have some of the best dietary data in the country on a very, very large cohorts of women. And that's very, very rich and informative data that a lot of people have been able to use to talk about diet and micronutrients. There's qualitative data, because women write on the back of the surveys, so that can be used as well, either cross-sectionally for specific topics or longitudinally to get the narrative of women's lives. And as Sally mentioned, there's a lot of administrative data. So we've got a huge amount of data linked to the survey data for the women for different time periods in different states and it's all very complicated, but there's a lot of data there. And I noticed a lot of people are interested in aged care data, and we've made, I think, tremendous use of the aged care data for that 1921-26 cohort. And I'm taking a breath, and then going to be starting to look at the 46-51 cohort as they move into, some of them starting to use aged care now. And we also have geocoded data. So we've got, by doing that, we can actually bring in a whole lot of other data sets that are linked geographically. So the National Pollutants Database, Earth-wide satellite images. And so that gives us a whole other dimension of data about the circumstances and the ecology where the women live. So what if you want to access those data, the complex data, the comments data, the geocoded data, the linked data? So to do that, you apply through the Longitudinal Study of Women's Health website online portal. You need a liaison person. So there's about 8 people you can select to work with you, to advise you on your work. It gets reviewed by a committee. And if it's survey data only, it'll go to you by Cloud Store. If it's linked data, you can analyze it either on site You can pay for one of our statisticians to analyse it, or you can access it through Shore. The time frame for those approval is about 2 months. There's a cycle, but it will be longer for linked data access because those approvals have to go back to the custodians and the timeframes out of our hands. So that's sort of like a whirlwind tour. Our website is alswh.org.au. And so if you want to go in there, there is a site for applying for data. There's also a whole lot of other sites, and you can search the publications. There's reports, there's all sorts of technical reports and data dictionary supplements and a whole lot of metadata, data books and a whole lot of metadata on there to inform your thinking about using the study. So I'm going to stop there so that we can have time for discussion and hit to the timetable. Thanks.